thank you all for making it here on a weeknight and a work night. But how good is it to meet people in person? So any excuse. This is as good an excuse as any. My name is Tasneem Chopra, and I will be your MC tonight for the launch of Conversations That Matter. We have, I don't even know how many of you in this room. There's a lot of you, and it's so wonderful to see these faces. We also have about 70 guests online who've joined us. So let's just wave to them, because I'm assuming they can see us. If they can't, they can definitely hear. Maybe give them a shout out so they can definitely hear you. We're so grateful to have participants abroad, as well as within Australia and, of course, in Victoria. So we are well represented to have conversations. I am going to invite our guest speaker, who will also be performing for us later and doing a launch, to do the acknowledgement to country. And if I can just confirm with Ben that that's good to go. The acknowledgement to country is going to be given by Mitch Chambo, and Mitch is a proud Gummaree man who I'll speak to a little bit later on, but this is Mitch.
Yummy, yummy. Can you see me? Hello? Clap if you can hear me. Awesome. My name's Mitch Chambo. Thanks for the intro. We're here tonight. Technology, we've got to trust it. It is what it is. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing more that I love than having real conversations, and certainly conversations that matter. So first and foremost, I just want to thank Crossroads, thank Joseph and the team for getting me here tonight. And it's just my absolute honour and privilege to pay my utmost respect and acknowledge the true owners of the land in which I am on, and that we are all on, and that being the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to extend that acknowledgement to all the clan groups and languages and neighbouring tribes that make up the beautiful Kulin Nation, and that have travelled and connected and shared ceremony for thousands upon thousands of years. And I'd like to acknowledge them as the first mothers, fathers, doctors, lawkeepers, agriculturalists, academics, nurturers of this beautiful land in which we all gather upon, we all make sustainable livings and revenue upon, we all capitalise by being here on this land. And whilst we're here, and whilst we can acknowledge that we are all capitalising in some capacity, it's important that we find ways to give back, to honour the first people of this place, so that we can continue to move forward and be on a healing journey together. So I'd just like to acknowledge again the true owners of this land, and thank you all for having me. I look forward to what's ahead. Have a beautiful evening.
Can I confirm if Mitch was going to perform any didgeridoo now? If you're there, Mitch. This is like such a Zoom session, isn't it? You're on mute, Mitch. Camera's off. Okay, we'll hopefully we'll enjoy a bit of that later, but we will continue to proceed with the rest of today's session. So Conversations at the Crossroads as an entity formed about 2 years ago. And it started off as an idea of Joe. And those of you who know Professor Joe Camilleri, you know that he comes up with an incredible idea probably every hour. And this is one of the many ideas. And last year I was delighted to be in this position online, though, launching Conversations at the Crossroads. And here we find ourselves 1 year later, launching perhaps the most ambitious project of Conversations at the Crossroads, which is Conversations That Matter. Conversations to be had, to be celebrated, to be debated, to be shared. Couldn't come at a better time after spending almost 2 years where we've not been able to converse, certainly in person, but so robustly and in such a spirit of maskless enjoyment. Myself, I found the power of conversations to have literally shifted behaviour in people. There's nothing more gratifying than to be sitting with people, 1 or 10 of you, and discussing ideas or notions or concepts that are so inherently dear to how we think and how we feel, and to grow our sense of comfort. I think without actually shifting that position, we don't develop, and conversations that matter are conversations that mould. And I look forward to hearing more about tonight's proceedings from Professor Joe, who will be giving us an overview of what this initiative is all about. We'll also be having some entertainment, both from our guest, special guest, Mitch Chambo, as well as some performance live here on stage from a guest artist, Minty D. But importantly, you'll also be hearing from people who have started their conversations that matter, cohorts, their groups, their tribe, and hearing from them why and how and what that has involved and what that journey looks like, and inspiring you, hopefully, to start up your own sessions for conversations that matter. And I call out to our online participants to think about that, to explore ways, think of people that you want to talk to, think of people that you want to engage. Perhaps you want to change their opinion. And this could be a great portal for achieving just that. So I do want to, at the outset, acknowledge the amazing work from our tech staffing led by Ben at the back there, who this is our first hybrid event, both in person and online. So please bear with us as we sort of tease our way through this process. But so far it's been a very familiar Zoom session. Hopefully from now it'll be even more entertaining in a different vein. I also want to thank, of course, the team that have put together today, and we'll mention them all towards the end of the evening, but you can obviously see the refreshments that are here. You can see the warmth of the team that have brought this event together, and I think a little round of applause, even at this stage, is long overdue. I'm now going to bring Professor Joe to the stage to talk a little bit about this initiative and give us an overview. For those of you online, if you have questions that you want to ask of Joe, of course, the audience will be fielding questions as well. But if you have questions, feel free to add them into the chat function, and we'll be receiving those and sharing them, and definitely dealing with any and every question that you have about today, because this is the place to do that. So for those of you who don't know, Joe is Emeritus Professor at La Trobe University. He's a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences. He's the author of some 30 books, has a leadership role in many organisations and initiatives in Australia and internationally, most recently Conversation at the Crossroads. Please welcome Professor Joe.
Well, thank you very much, Tasneem, and thank you to all of you who have given us the privilege of sharing with you something about this project that's in the making, Conversations That Matter. First, what I want to do is to pose the question, why this project at all? Because conversation is one of our greatest assets and often not at all valued. And yet conversation holds the key to the challenges of life, the challenges we face nationally and internationally. It offers us, conversation, the only meaningful space we can share, where we can share our concerns, our anxieties, our hopes, our aspirations for the future. And collectively, conversation, and this is a proposition I want to put to you, it's a proposition that I have come to believe in very strongly over the last 20 or more years. It is the single most powerful tool for social change. And whichever one comes second is much lower down the list. Some people ask, isn't conversation just talk? no action. But I ask you to think, what action could there be where there is no conversation? What kind of action would that be? Where it hasn't been thought through, where it hasn't been discussed, action may as well not happen. It's a waste of time and energy. It has to be thought through, it has to be conversed, it has to be looked at from many angles, not only by those who are engaged in the action, but by all those who are going to be impacted by the action. And the only way you can do it is by conversation. Action leads to conversation, and conversation leads to action. Conversation and action are two sides of the same coin. You might say, well, why now? Why conversations that matter at this time? Well, I can only offer you my own perspective. Because of the situation we currently find ourselves in. A situation unlike anything we've encountered in modern history. I would go further and say we are going through a threshold, a moment of transition, the scale of which there have only been 4 in the total history of human evolution. And this is the 5th. Only 4. And fortunately or unfortunately, we're right in the middle of it. How are we going to negotiate it? More challenging than anything that has happened for the last several hundred years. The multiple life-threatening challenges are pressing in on us. I think you all know them. We are just moving from one to the other. If it's not a pandemic, it's climate change. If it's not climate change, it is explosive social inequalities. If it's not that, it is racism. If it's not racism, it's armed conflict. If it's not that, it is the widespread pandemic of mental ill health. So we are at the crossroads. At the crossroads. At this crossroads, there are many, many roads forking, one way and another. Think of it as there being dozens of roads going in all kinds of directions, and we don't know which direction to go. We're at 6s and 7s. What is the only option we have but to come together, stop as we approach the crossroads and see what the options are? We dare not take the wrong turn if we can help it. So, if there is to be conversation, and if it's to help us get a sense of direction, personally, in our communities, our professions, nationally, internationally, how should we approach it? Well, first of all, we need to accept that there is diversity. Conversation is worth having because there is diversity. Diversity of cultures, of age groups, of interests, of points of view. The conversation has to be cross-cultural and it has to be intergenerational. Those who are 18 and those who are 75 or 82 have to have the skill to talk with each other at length and in depth. And if one's uncomfortable, either the older person or the younger person, it's time to develop that comfort zone and the skills that go with it. We need conversations where listening is at least as important as speaking. Conversations which take us beyond echo chambers, political spin, and platitudes. And boy, do we know there's an awful lot of that. So, in conversations that matter, as opposed to those that don't matter so much, we engage in frank, vigorous conversations. We empathize with the concerns of others. We actively nurture friendships and a sense of community. A few things to remind ourselves of. How should we approach the conversation? Nothing can be achieved overnight. There is no quick fix. Conversation is for the long haul. Conversation is for the long haul. Just in case you didn't hear it, conversation is for the long haul. You want one session, forget it. Irrelevant. In conversation, if we're discussing an issue, it doesn't matter which one, Indigenous rights, environmental issues, the state of politics in this country, another country, whatever it may be, we have to identify the problem area. If there is a problem area we are interested in. And then we go to the more interesting steps. Okay, we know that there is a problem with climate change. I think most of us know that. We have to ask, seldom asked, why has it come to pass? We've known about it for a long time. Why has it happened? Did God wave a magic wand and say, and let there be horrendous climate change? And if that did not happen, how has it happened? Only conversation will give you an inkling of what might lie behind this problem, that problem, or the other. And once we know something about, because if you go to the doctor, you don't want to just know about the symptoms. I've got a high temperature, bring the temperature down. We need the causes. What's the problem? And then we can ask the question, we have an idea of the problem, whatever issue we're discussing, can it be fixed? Is it fixable? And if so, how can one fix it? You might say climate change, simple. Get rid of all industries that emit greenhouse gases. That's a non-answer. It's an irrelevant answer. It's so obvious. It gets you nowhere. What's stopping us doing that? That's the question. What are the roadblocks to fixing something? What stands in the way? Take Australia. Why are we having so much difficulty getting on top of the climate change problem in this country? Why? What is the roadblock or the roadblocks? What are they? Let's pinpoint them. And once in conversation, it would take a while. It'd take a while. We may not all agree. We have to see whether there can be a meeting of minds. Once we know what the roadblocks are, we then have the really interesting question at last. How do you get around the roadblock? How many people do you know who have heard addressing that question? And that has to be very specific. Getting around the roadblock. Who would need to do what? When? How? And in what numbers? And by what time? You answer all those questions. How long will it take, do you think, for a conversation to really come to grips with those issues? A while. So we're going to take a while. So, what are we proposing in conversations that matter? We are proposing small conversation groups. That's where the action is. It is useful, and we've done a fair bit of this, to have large meetings. We've had events online because of COVID with several hundred, many hundreds attending some of them. That's good, useful, informative, perhaps stimulating. But it doesn't get to grips with these questions because it can only be done in small groups. Of course, different kinds of groups, different formats, different places, catering to different needs and different interests. And the vision is of, once we get these conversation groups off the ground, networking over time. If I'm discussing homelessness and you're discussing climate change, the two must meet. That's one of the great problems of our social movements. Terrible, terribly insular. I'm working on climate change, don't bother me about anything else, even though I know they're connected. And usually the roadblocks are similar. The roadblocks are similar. No matter which major problem you're looking at, when you go down to basics and fundamentals. And the vision ultimately is, of course, of a global network. So we're working on that already. Not just a national network of small groups, but a global network looking at a range of issues and then comparing notes, exchanging their findings, their conclusions, their recommendations, and hopefully enriched and enthused and nurtured by each other. Okay, so what are we aiming for? Small conversation groups. Initially, it can be in one of two ways. Either someone says, and we've had one or two people say just that, I will form a conversation, bring together my friends or colleagues or others that I'm in contact with or organizations that we belong to, and we'll see what issue or issues people that I bring together are interested in. Alternatively, someone can say, look, I can't get a small group going, but I'm interested in issue X and Y. Can you help to put me in touch with others who share that interest, and we'll see whether we can come together, whether online or in person or some mixture of the two. So there are two options. Either conversation at the crossroads can help put the group together, depending on people's preferences, or some individuals may say, I want to give it a try, take the initiative and see whether I can get my own group, so to speak, together. And at that first two meetings, right? First two, can't do it all in one. First two, you will try, if you can, you've got 6, 8, 10 people in the space. You're going to try and deal with certain key questions. Which topics do we want to prioritize? 1 or 2 is plenty. But if you have 3 or 4, all right, well, you'll be going for 3 or 4 years. But anyhow, start with 1 or 2. See where the consensus, the bulk of the group wants to go. And then you have to deal with specifics. You see, this is where a lot of groups fall down. They're not practical enough. Grand ideas, lovely conversation, sharing of food and drink, which is a wonderful thing to do. But don't ask me to be practical and disciplined. Who wants to be practical and disciplined? But you do. You have to decide how often you want to meet, where you're going to meet, what kind of space is congenial for the group. Is it a home? Is it a bar? Is it a pub? Where is it? Is it a library room? Where is it? Some people would have the space in their home, others may not. Who will introduce at least the first 2 or 3 sessions? Someone has to be deputized. 5 minutes introduction. This is my take on the nature of the problem we've agreed to talk about. Who will facilitate, not introduce it, but facilitate, at least for the first 2, maybe 3 sessions. And then it can go round, or we can stick with the same facilitator up to the group. Okay, nearly the end. Of course, conversation at the crossroads, because we are trying to get this project off the ground, is prepared, willing, to some extent, I think, able to offer some help in getting these groups off the ground and then helping to nurture them. In what ways? Very quickly. We have already put together 4 discussion guides on 4 topics. Not because we wanted to follow one of those 4 topics, you can if you wish to, but because it gives you some idea of what it would take to prepare a serious conversation. So you've got a guide there. You don't have to do it the same way, but it gives you some reading, some questions, podcasts, etc., that people might like to consult in relation to the topic. And we are launching, more or less as we speak, 5 initial podcasts, which will be issued. The first one's already issued. It's on the question of race and Indigenous rights, and there'll be others to follow, climate change and so on. The remainder over the next 2 or 3 couple of weeks. All of that will be on the website. Everything I've mentioned will be on the Conversation of the Crossroads website. If you want contacts of people who happen to be particularly knowledgeable on some issue or issues, whether it is to get in touch with them, or whether you just want to consult what they've had to say, we can help with that. And early next year, from late February to early April, I will be running for Conversation at the Crossroads a 7-week program. 7-week program, 7 consecutive Tuesday evenings. 3 hours. It'll be a total roughly of 20 hours. It'll be in person and online. We will have some of the top names around the world joining us to share their insights. And I will try and moderate it and make a bit of an input. We'll have space for role play on conversation, small group discussion, theatre, and much else. It'll be intensive. And of course, it'll be fully catered. We at University College, which is one of the university. So, to conclude, we have a request or a suggestion. We have a form which we can show you later on the screen. And with a bit of luck, we may even have it in print by the time we get to it, in which we invite you to express interest. That's all. Express interest in participating in conversations that matter. And you're provided with a whole list of topics. And you can choose your top 4 preferences, top 4 topics of interest to you. And that will enable us to match people with similar interests. And you can identify the kinds of group you would like to join. It's just an expression of interest. It commits you to nothing except to say, in principle, I'm interested. I may be willing to take part now. I may be willing to take part in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, maybe the year after. Doesn't matter. But you can count on me as being supportive and interested in the project Conversations That Matter. Well, that's what's on offer. I hope a little later in the evening, we will get a chance to get expressions of interest. There is so much to do. The challenges are daunting, but I think the possibilities are exhilarating. To be able to touch base with people like-minded and not so like-minded in Asia, in Europe, as well as in Australia, part of the Americas, and to feel that we're engaged in such a conversation. It's the privilege that can come to us if we're prepared to take 1 or 2 small initial steps. And I hope we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. There was a lot there, and I know some of you might have some questions already, but I am going to to throw to Alex Hercombe to ask Alex if there are any questions online from viewers that they wanted to. Stunned into silence, Joe. Well, in that case, do we have any questions from the floor about the format, the intention, troubleshooting, anything at all? Oh, wow, just a small one there. What is the primary problem in the world, Joe? You've got 1 minute.
Well, there are many problems, we know that. Huh? The problem that interests me most, I think it's, for me, the major problem, where I stand, where I sit. Yes, the major problem for me comes up when I ask the question, what are the roadblocks? And the answer to that is what poses for me the greatest problem. Of course, I understand climate change. I understand the damage that a nuclear weapon would cause if detonated, just mid-range, not the deadliest, mid-range. It would, I know, it would destroy Melbourne, full stop. And that's likely to happen, not Melbourne specifically, but the use of the first weapon within 20 years, undoubtedly. So I know these major problems, right? I know that there are all of these major problems, but underneath them is the one that's most taxing, because it's common to all. And that is that our institutions are not fit for purpose. That's the problem. No matter what it is, the institutions aren't capable of dealing with any of these problems. We see it. The political parties of this world, the parliaments of this world, the bureaucracies of this world, a good number of the corporations of this world, our educational institutions. I've only been in it for 50 odd years, educational institution, and I know how ill-equipped they are to produce a generation of people who are attentive to these issues. So our institutions need to be looked at very carefully and to see what can be done to make them fit for purpose. Some of them may, I didn't say may have reached their use-by date. The monarchies of this world a few centuries ago had reached their use-by date. Why might the same not apply to some of our current institutions, local, national, and international? Problem.
Any other questions? Less daunting. Yes. I've got one in the back, then I'll come to you. Yes, in the blue. Yes.
I have a question. Having been involved in some small group conversation before, something that I hear often, both in informal and informal conversation settings, is something along the lines that our politicians need to do more. Personally, I've come to really dislike that response because it sounds like nothing more than I can't do anything. My politician, the standing member, isn't prepared to toe the line. What can we do? Should that come up in any of our newly formed conversations, how might we respond?
Jeff?
Yes. One of the things that troubles me most, or not most, but troubles me nevertheless, a fair bit, is when people point at governments, political parties and parliaments. Well, of course, they leave a lot to be desired. I've just said so. But it is people's action and inactions that make them possible. So rather than pointing the finger all the time, exclusively, at this industry that government, that political party, that parliament, I'd like to turn it towards us, who are in much larger numbers. What are we doing? What are we doing about it? Because institutions function in the context of mindsets. No institution, not in China, not in Russia, could withstand for long unless the mindset of the society as a whole was of a kind which sustains them, or at least allows them to function. So the onus comes back to us. And we have to think long and hard how we converse with anyone and everyone around us, and whether we have the skills to converse. So that, I think, is one of the part of the answer. That's a rather important question.
Thank you, Joe. We could probably have time for one more question, just so that we can get back onto schedule. And I saw a couple of hands up there, but I'll go to this gentleman. And the rest of them, of course, we can take during mingle time. And how many of us want to have Joe in our conversation group? Honestly, that would be amazing. Yes, so what was your question? Oh, we do.
Robert asked the key question, what is the major problem? And what he got, he was shaking his head all the time during your answer, Joe. It was a good answer, but it didn't address the problem. The problems are much more fundamental than that, and much more because of the way we are evolved creatures. It's the problem of greed and the problem of the belief that sustains it. And the necessity is to develop a belief which will be in harmony with the limited circumstances we find ourselves in. We are unique in the universe. This planet is probably the only place where this level of civilization has developed and we're on the verge of destroying it. It's simple greed. It's the driving force of the life force which has brought us this far. It's been absolutely necessary to come this far in our evolution. But now, unless we take charge of our own evolution and start to make decisions which are intelligent and believed in wholeheartedly, there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to drift straight off the edge of the cliff.
Thank you. So I will take that as a comment. But we have one question.
I would like Joe to answer that.
Sorry?
I would like Joe to answer that comment.
I think it was a statement, but more than a question.
The question is, what can we do about it? What can... Joe, come on.
Look, I think for this, that probably sounds like a really big one, so it might take more time than we have. But what I will throw to the online questioner. Will they be reading it out?
No, I'll be reading it out. So it's from Aaron. It says, many people that feel excluded from conversation are people that may be less educated, less likely to come to events like these, and more likely to hold positions that a group like this may find offensive. How can we best engage groups and people like this in meaningful conversations that end with some degree of goodwill?
I'm not sure that the premise is accurate. Is it the case that there are more people ready and open for the kind of conversation we're talking about in Toorak, Melbourne, than in Broadmeadows, Melbourne? I don't think so. I don't think so. I know both quite well. And I think I could find more people in Broadmeadows than in Toorak. So, yes, there is an element, of course, of education to give you the desire and the capacity, the confidence to engage in conversation, but don't let's understate the wisdom of many people who are at the lower end of the social and economic ladder, and perhaps even a little bit below the average of the educational ladder. I think you need different environments, different skills, different ways of doing it, but I don't think one is essentially more difficult than the other. I think they're going to be difficult pretty well everywhere.
you, Joe. Thanks. I'm conscious of that question, but I am also aware that we're running a little bit behind schedule. We would like to have all the conversations, though. I mean, they all matter, right? So we will be tabling those after the formal proceedings. But for now, I wanted to introduce Mitch Chambo, who we heard from earlier for acknowledgement to country. Mitch is a proud Gamilaroi man. He's a world music star. Many of you might be familiar with his work. He's renowned for his didgeridoo playing and lights up any arena with a passion and deep commitment to his First Nations culture and the people he represents. He will be formally launching this event. Please welcome again Mitch Chambo.
Yama, I just realised that through that acknowledgement, no one could see me. But hopefully you can see me now, and hopefully all is good. Thanks very much again for having me. What a night! Some great points made there. Great conversation, questions. You know, I like that one about greed, though. I think you know, greed's got a lot to answer for. You know, when we look at the state of country here now. It's pretty devastating to see what's happening to the beautiful landscape that we've got. And although there might be all these amazing minerals and resources in there that you can monetize with, the ongoing effects don't seem to have the next generation in mind, or the people at the heart of the country, and that being my people, first people. So there's a lot to conversate. When we talk about greed, and I think a lot of things being said tonight, there's so much to really get into, but I guess the crux of it is we can talk about we can talk about around the world, we can talk about here, there, and everywhere. But you know, I grew up with this little saying, and that was, if your backyard's not clean, no point trying to clean the park. And you know, I think for all of us, if we can come together as a collective and really work together to heal, and what I mean by heal is heal here in this country, be a part of the healing journey of my people as a collective, as Mal, as one, we could really achieve something beautiful. And I think we're coming into a place now where truth is starting to surface. Obviously, our people have been telling our truth of events that have occurred, but it's good to see now multiple people from all walks of life speaking and wanting to understand that truth and carry that truth and make it a part of their own journey. Because the reality is truth is truth, and truth will set you free. And within truth is healing. There's abundance. There's so many beautiful things in truth. And the more that we keep trying to hold this band-aid over this truth, the more the sore festers, the more generations have to suffer, have to feel that transgenerational trauma, the more pain and disconnect we have. So I think, you know, truth can be uncomfortable, but it's also a beautiful thing. And I just want to encourage you all briefly tonight, just to come into that truth, and you know, don't be scared of it. I think sometimes walls can be put up, defense mechanisms can be running hot because of the severity of truth, and in particular in the context of our people and moving forward. But you know what? Once we get there and we get into that truth and can sit and have a civil conversation, a real sharing, I think out of that is birth a beautiful relationship where we can heal and move forward. And that's what I'm about. I'm a proud First Nations Gamilaroi man, and my whole message is, you know, Australia, this continent, if you like, has always been multicultural. We've been here for 60,000 years, come from hundreds of different tribes and clan groups, and it's just like humanity. Yes, we've got lots in common, but we've got lots of differences, different protocols, different ways in which we see different things and look after different parts of country. And here we are today in 2021, and we are still multicultural. We've got beautiful people from all walks of life that have, come in here to take refuge, like my beautiful wife. We've got people from everywhere now. We're more multicultural than ever, but what we need to do is acknowledge who was here first, what happened, what continues to happen, not to point fingers, not to condemn, but so we can come together and heal, so we can start to cut down these high representations of suicide in my community, of incarceration, domestic violence, lack of education. The lacks go on, but I'm not here to go on about the lacks. I'm here to say we can stop that by coming together. We can stop that by opening our hearts and choosing to educate ourselves, and also choosing not to have an opinion based on a book, but to go out in the community, to sit with my people, to talk. And when you do that, you will see that you learn so much and that you get given so much in here, and you get to do with your heart and spirit. And I just want to urge you all tonight to just open up your heart, set that spirit of yours free, and just fly and walk with my people. Some of my mobs are ready to fly. They're ready to soar like rockets, and some are limping. They're carrying a lot of pain, and they need someone that is going to get up under their arms and walk with them and journey together. And that's what we want. We don't want divided communities. We want unity. We want healing. We want togetherness. We want acceptance. But we need to go back, peel it back a little bit, and reset those foundations, because the foundations everything have been built on, they're rocky, they're cracked. We need to go back and fix it. And the only way to do that is to do that together. So I'm not here tonight to rustle any feathers, even though I probably have, because that's just what happens. But I'm just here to really preach a message of love, positivity, and unity. And with that said, thank you so much again for having me. What a beautiful night to have, a night of hard conversation, of real conversation. And I think that's what it's all about. And I think the main thing is people may have statements or questions or whatever you want to have, but if you're coming from a place of love, not a place of an attack, it can always end up in a beautiful way. We can have debate, we can have real, open, emotion-filled conversations, but there needs to be a level of respect there, because that's where we can break through and really move forward together. So again, thank you, Joseph. Thank you to the whole team for having me. I wish so much that I could be there in person, because I can feel the energy and all these topics and conversations. I wish I was there to take it all in the flesh, but I'm not. But I am here online. And with that said, I'm going to introduce my wife, and we're going to do a little song for you. And this song is my version of You're the Voice by John Farnham in my Gamilaroi language. I was lucky or blessed enough to perform it with him at the Australia Firefight concert with Brian Mames from Queen in front of like 80,000 people. And it's a blessing of a song. And I chose to do my own rendition of it because I really resonated with the message that I was told. And I know other people have got varying stories, but the story I was told about the song, it was a song that was birthed to step out and be a voice to combat domestic violence. And it resonated with me. I'm definitely an ally when it comes to opening up that conversation and to honouring the matriarchs in my community. There's nothing greater than our beautiful matriarchs across the whole world, but certainly in my community, we're only here from that beautiful gift of life that comes from our beautiful matriarch's womb. And there's nothing more sacred or royal than that. And the sooner that we look at all First Nations women as royalty that sit way higher than any gold crown could of the Commonwealth, the better. And that's not me having a crack. I think that's just coming into a truth. Our women have been here for over 60,000 years, giving life, keeping community together, holding absolute sacred stories. And there's nothing more royal than that. As per all women around the world, all women are royal. But I'm a bit biased. I love my community, love my beautiful matriarch. So with that said, we're going to kick off the song. My beautiful wife's going to come on in here and we're going to sing it for you. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it doesn't lag or cut out. If it does, just clap anyway, so I feel good. Because I can't see anyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm nervous now. This is my beautiful wife, Leah. Beautiful, strong West Papuan woman from the Biak people. Her totem's the shark. Yani Geyobiba Yani Garemini Yani Lugula Yani Gimobila Gamalu Yani Diria Miani Yangu Mie, Miani Yangu Pire, Yanga Warangan, Yindeguaya winning it, Gimubila Dudley, Gimubila, Yin again, Yin again, Yanni Gamu Nadali Davian, Yanni Gamu Willow, Yanni. Winning it, Yanni Gumalinga. Waringa, Gigi Waringa, Yanni Gimubilana Magaba. Yanni Nangu Mie, Yanni Nangu Bire. Nanga Waranga, you take the way I win again. Gimubila Dudley, Gimubila, yet again, yet again. Miani Gamu Nadali Davian, Miani Gamu Willa, why, Gariga. You're the voice trying to understand that. Make a noise and make it clear. We're not gonna sit in silence. We're not gonna live with fear. You take the way I win again. Gimubila Dudley, Gimubila, yet again. Yet again. Yanni Gamu Nadali Davian, Yanni Gamu Willa, why, Gariga. You take away how we again. Gimubila Dudley, Gimubila, yet again. Yet again. Yanni Gamu Nadali Davian, Yanni Gamu Willa, why, Gariga. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. I can see on the screen I'm waving. Wave back. Let's connect virtually. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Joseph, again. Thank you, team. Thank you for opening up the hard conversations. And thank you for our first gig back in I don't know how long. Take care. Lots of love to you, Mob. If you want to follow us, we're on Instagram. We're everywhere. Yanni Ungali.
Well, that was different. I think it's fair to say he was putting in 110%. It was clear, and what we managed to hear was wonderful. But of course, technology being what it is and circumstance, we can only hope next time is different and better. But another big round of applause for Mitch, please. I also want to shout out to our online viewers for sticking with us through this. I know it's a little bit longer than probably planned. We are going over, but there's been so much dialogue already, and already so much interest in this. And I wanted to now pivot to all up 8 individuals who have had some association with Conversations That Matter so far. Each one of them is going to spend a few minutes describing their perspective, the groups that they're forming, and how they're finding it or how they expect to find it, because they're all at different stages of that. So the first 4 who will come up and talk are Ben Pereira, Ishan Arya, Susan Langell, and we have a prereq from a guest in Amsterdam, Guys Verbosen. So if the 4 of them can come up, 3 of them here, 1 online, we will have you share your insights, and then we'll have a short break and then move on to the next 4.
That's been so inspiring so far, and I've talked to so many people already this evening that I've found out so many interesting things about, so I'm excited about how we're going. So I'm Susan Langell, and I started running a book club in July, and we've been meeting about every month or so, and it's all been online so far. So it's a small group. There's been 4 to 6 people that have been involved and attending each meeting, and 2 of the members, this is just coincidental, but have studied English literature in different countries, one in Iran and one in China. So really interesting backgrounds that people have. We've focused on the theme of women's stories in different cultures. For example, in Black America, or in segregated America in the 1950s, in Russia during the Second World War and afterwards, and England in the 1920s. Books that we've had so far have been The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, Silka's Journey by Heather Morris, and To the Lighthouse, A Room of One's Own, and Orlando by Virginia Woolf. So we're going to meet in the new year again to discuss 2 books at the same time, one by a female Pakistani author and another one by a Polish female author. The Polish author is Olga Tokarczuk, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature and also the Booker Prize. So it'll be a really interesting January session. I've really enjoyed focusing on the different women's experiences, and I think that it's given me more of a respect for the issues and conditions that women have had to deal with in different places. And I've also read more books just individually because of that, because I've got great ideas from the people in the group, even on topical issues like learning more about women in Afghanistan. So that's been really great to tie in those books with current events. I'm really looking forward also to reading more about other cultures like China and other areas that I don't know about and have never visited in the past. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ishan, and I have organized 3 groups, 3 different cohorts. Now, I would admit I'm still in a very organizing stage. So the meetings that we had weren't very structured. And I feel as a facilitator, I didn't have the clarity that I have today, because every time I hear Joe speak, I end up getting more clarity. So I think I'm going to go back, and I think that the next meetings that we would have would be better. Now, the 3 groups that I met with are very different to each other. One's a community group. So I'm a part of a few WhatsApp groups of different cultural communities. So I happened to speak to one of them. It's a group from the state that I come from in India, Maharashtra. So it's one of those associations. So I spoke to a few of those members about this idea, and we had a little meeting. I'll quickly tell you how it went. So that's one cohort. The second one was school students. My wife's a teacher, and I conduct private tuitions as well. So I thought school students would be a good cohort as well. Almost everyone is under 18. Now, with the school students, I wasn't able to meet them in person. I actually sought the help of the student I'm helping with in maths, and I said, "How about you contact your colleagues or your peers who might be interested in this idea?" So he got a few of them, and we had a little conversation on Zoom, which was similar to with all the Zoom issues that we are seeing. And the third one was, so I used to be very active with the student union at my university, a life member with them. So I contacted a few current leaders, and I said, let's get in touch. I spoke to them about this conversation group, and they agreed, but things didn't shape the way I was expecting. So sorry, I think I'll end up talking about more challenges right now because I'm really passionate in getting these groups going, but there have been roadblocks along the way. So the union, I won't name it, but that particular union is in fight with another union, and it's pretty chaotic right now. Very chaotic and very tiring. Each is trying to get rid of the other one, and they got legit reasons, and the university is supporting one. So in this chaos, I wasn't the priority for them. So I will get in touch with them. I'm pretty sure they had some resolutions lately, but it's a powerful group. It has got precedents of different clubs and societies, and I'm sure we'll get something positive out of it. Now, when I was conducting those 3 groups, I also felt, and I could be wrong, but I felt maybe those groups were succumbing to one of those behavioral biases we talk about, a recency error. And everyone was talking of more issues that were pressing them recently. So the school students were talking more about bullying and harassment at school. That was the topic that emerged. I agree that's not a recent topic. It's an ongoing issue at schools. But the ones with the union, they spoke about commodification, and the whole discussion went into why is university supporting certain organizations, why aren't they supporting the other ones? And for them, that was a big issue. But I just felt, I went in thinking, well, there might be some other topics that might arise, but that didn't happen. So it's a learning curve for me as well. And for the community group, it was more to do on the lines of, and this is very interesting, I didn't see that happen, but they were focusing more on, I'm not sure if you guys are going to be shocked, but they were focusing more on how the right wing is being targeted in India by the left wing. I wasn't prepared for this. Keeping my political views aside, I thought that was very interesting, but it was pretty heated, and I felt it's just getting heated. People are here to fight, not to converse. So I'll conclude by saying I have a lot of work to do as a facilitator, but I'm going to get some ideas from everyone else who is conducting those groups as well. And hopefully next time I'll have something more constructive to the feedback to give all of you. But it's a good start. I think it's important people recognize that. So that's important. Thanks, guys.
Bit nervous after those two. Hi everyone, I'm Ben Pereira and I'm part of the conversation group called Meet Me at the Crossroads. So I'm a first year uni student studying politics and international relations at Deakin, and my cousin and good friend Rashad Sadine gave me the opportunity earlier in the year to be a part of his conversation group that's talking about political issues in society, and I was very excited to be a part of it. I have to admit, initially I was a bit overwhelmed because we have people from different generations, different backgrounds, different experiences, something that Joe was alluding to earlier. And it was kind of intimidating to challenge opinions of people who are older than you, who are more experienced than you. But as we chatted more in person and on our WhatsApp chat, learned a few things about political discourse and how we should best communicate. The first is that you should always say what you think, even if it might not be popular with the group. This is really important because it means that you have the chance to hone your views as well as other people's views. And it's also equally as important to listen to other people's views in order to have a genuine conversation about issues. The second is that although you might not hold the same ideological position as other people on a certain issue, it doesn't make you wrong or any less passionate about that issue. And the third is that the best way to hold these discussion groups is over a big lunch because everyone's in a good mood. And if you have nothing to say, you can at least eat or drink. In our discussions, our group is focused on the media, both print media and social media, and how this is impacting our society and our discourse. There are a lot of talking points that have been brought up, but the one thing that has been really clear to me is that the increased polarisation of our society through the media means that these conversation groups are really important to lower the temperature and have issues-based discussions. Thank you.
Good afternoon from a cold and wintry morning here in the Netherlands. It is a pleasure to be with you. My name is Gijs Verbossen. I'm a lecturer in conflict studies at the University of Amsterdam. My friend and former PhD supervisor, Joe, asked me to join Conversations That Matter from this side of the world. I'm sorry I can't be with you today, as I'm actually teaching class at this very moment. I love the idea of an international network of conversations, but unfortunately, I was not able to hold a meeting at this time due to the return of lockdown here in the Netherlands for the past weeks. In my role as lecturer, however, as well as in my personal and professional network, I have conversations that matter. I say this with due humility, as of course not all my conversations are of the highest intellectual standards, but I feel privileged to usually find myself among people that care about the state of the world. So in lieu of being able to meet in larger groups again, I wanted to briefly share with you what I, from anecdotal evidence, generally see people caring about. Just before lockdown, I took part in the Amsterdam Climate March, where I saw 40,000 people of all ages participate. Among my students, I seem to find unanimous support for urgent climate action. In my social circle, I find that even late adopters of climate-aware lifestyle choices are choosing for less heavy carbon footprints. And in Dutch politics, to my surprise, I finally see the center-right Liberal Party, dominating politics for the last decade, vying to claim the green economic opportunity narrative. Then, while perhaps less directly exposed than you are over in Australia, another much heard topic of concern is the rise of China and the risk of great power rivalry. I detect quite an awareness of the potential flashpoints in this and the general worry about the ability of diplomacy to prevent escalation. The role of Europe on the world stage is a related question and concern among many, feeding into the polarizing debate about the extent of EU integration. More generally, perhaps among the slightly better informed, I find a worry about the capacity of multilateralism to cooperatively address the world's most taxing challenges, which is manifesting concrete problems such as the COVID pandemic worldwide and the anti-migrant sentiment in the EU. See, for example, the Polish border migration crisis. Besides these worries, these concerns and quite deep felt care, however, I also see a risk of a fatalistic sentiment as a result of what I could perhaps call an overload of problems. At least among my peers, I find great care for the state of the world, but I also find an inability to enter the housing market, choosing to not have children because of climate change, and a sense that promises of higher education are or have been repudiated. So to close, one of the challenges I see is to maintain engagement, but without structural progress on the matters mentioned, that is going to be difficult. So I look very much forward to hear how this launch has been and to keep engaging with you in the future. Thank you.
Last leg of the evening, and I do want to invite, I don't know about you, but I'm loving the cross range of perspectives and the ages and the general overall perspectives that we're getting from our Conversations That Matter presenters. We have 4 more now, to sort of formally conclude the context of the session. The first is Neil Aiken. Then we have Campbell McKinnon, Kerry Stall, and joining us from Lisbon, we have Jackson Irwin. So
thank you, Tass. Good evening. Joe, congratulations. My name's Neil Aiken. I represent a Muslim group, a newly formed conversations which that matter. As encouraged by Joe. So we've had about 2 sessions so far, and we're going to have another one in about a week's time, every 6 weeks for about 9 minutes. We have about 15 people, a very representative sample. And in our first session, we had about a dozen people, and we discussed, a multitude of issues of subjects which matter. And as the saying goes, if you put a dozen Muslims together, you'll get 13 opinions. So we had a variety of subjects. In our second one, we chose climate change. So we had, in our second conversation, we had an incredibly intriguing, a very lively discussion on climate change. And hopefully we will further go into depth in our next session. So thank you very much. And I look forward to being part of larger conversations with you in the future. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Campbell, and I'm part of the Eltham High School, or was part of the Eltham High School Conversations That Matter group. I've just finished year 12. So, thank you. So the Eltham High School Conversation Group formed in March this year, primarily with students from VCE Global Politics and History classes who were keen to discuss issues that concerned us. After an introductory meeting with Joe, in which the history and purpose of the initiative was provided, we quickly decided that our first discussion topic would be the treatment of women. If you might remember, in March of this year, that was a very, very prominent issue, and it still is, obviously, but especially was receiving a lot of media coverage at the time. So it was a clear choice to us. A number of the group members were quite open about their own personal experiences with sexual harassment and sexist culture. And this was extremely eye-opening to many, especially to those of us who hadn't experienced such things like me. The group was really supportive of those who spoke up, and this first session was extremely productive. There was about probably maybe 20 to 30 people at that first meeting, so it was quite a good turnout. We did, however, note that the majority of the group were themselves women, and that for such conversations to be really productive, we would need to reach a broader audience, mainly of, having more diverse representation. So we held a few more meetings in which we began to discuss how we as a group and a school could combat these issues, and began planning how we could incorporate the principles of conversations at the crossroads into more broadly into workshops and classes for the whole school. Unfortunately, like many things this year, our plans were stifled by COVID and lockdowns. However, a group of Year 12 members from the group who graduated this year, including myself, plan to continue in an Eltham High School alumni group. We're planning on meeting in December to discuss our focus areas for 2022. The Eltham High School group will also continue next year with some fresh faces, and plans to continue the work of making positive changes in the school in relation to the treatment of women and girls. It's clear to me that all change must begin with a conversation. And what this initiative, despite only having a few meetings, really made clear to me is that the sharing of our own personal experiences is one of the most powerful and moving things. And I really hope that through this initiative we can all do our little bit to make the world a better place. So thank you.
So should I be talking now? I can't see if I'm on or not. So if somebody can clap, that might help me. Oh, there we go. That's great. Thanks, Joe and Tasneem. It's an absolute delight to be involved in conversations that matter. I'm part of a group of 6 core conversationalists. We come from, or we live in a coastal area about 3 hours south of Sydney. We all come from or have different experience, different professions, different work and life experiences. And of course, that makes for a great conversation. I asked my colleagues what motivated them to participate in a conversation group. The general consensus was it's a mode of learning, it's a mode of sharing ideas, and it's connecting in the, with the idea and the hope of making things better. Because, we might see ourselves as insignificant, but together, we are better placed to make good decisions, make positive change for hopefully the world. We meet 6 or 7 times. We have met 6 or 7 times. We meet 1 hour each alternate week. We share the task of recording the conversation, and we've got this great facilitator, a colleague of yours, Joe, Stuart Rees. He has been absolutely significant in keeping the momentum, and I think that's really important. He circulates talking points prior to the next meeting, and so we come to the conversation prepared, and we are able to maximise the use of the time. So there's flow and there's energy. He's also an excellent timekeeper, and I think this is probably important for anyone that's thinking of joining or developing a conversation group. Timekeeping is important because, we all have busy lives and we've got things to do. Some of the challenges I've found have been the use of technology, which I've just demonstrated to you. The other challenge for us, particularly living where we are, it's a regional area, so we haven't been that successful in retaining young people. And, we need to hear the younger person's voice. It's important. I've got a lot to say. I would learn a lot from younger people. I think we all do. When I look at your audience tonight, it doesn't appear that you have that issue in Melbourne, but certainly in a regional town or regional area, that's probably going to be something that needs to be worked on. But if I can encourage you all to either facilitate, develop, involve yourself in a group, it is a great experience, and you do learn a lot. So there you go. That's my take on our little group from Jervis Bay. Thanks for listening.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's been an amazing evening so far, morning for me over here in Lisbon. Just to start off, Kerry, the first thing about getting the youth engaged, that will definitely come with time. I was a part of the starting launch group with Joe and many others who were there tonight, and spent a lot of last year during lockdown bringing conversation at the crossroads to life. Unfortunately, I haven't been too involved the last year, but to see youth was a problem for us a year ago, and to see how many young people engage all over the world is amazing. So stick at it, and it will definitely come with persistence. What I've been doing though is, I would say, a project that is one of the ripples of conversation at the crossroads. I got quite motivated to, with conversation at the crossroads, a few other projects that I was doing to open up a physical space in Lisbon, one that aimed to be COVID-proof business model / community, like a safe harbour where people could come and connect. The biggest thing that I felt was missing in society over the last year was that deeper human connection. You've probably all felt that. So what I did was pitch the owners of an old hostel that I worked at 9 years ago when I was in Lisbon as a tourist. They had only 2 people staying per night during COVID, and we turned it into a space where people could connect. And those vehicles of connection were food, coffee, alcohol or beverages, sitting around the fire in the winter or around the beautiful terrace in the summer, as well as co-work. So co-work became the major vehicle. And then what we wanted to do was scale through these elements of connection and impact. So first you had the physical space, which is called Casa, or collaborative house, being the translation. Then secondary to that, you had 3 elements, which is the co-work, the co-kitchen. So we're getting people to collaborate on the food and a rotating menu, always healthy and plant-based, and trying to get to zero waste. So it's every little thing that we're doing was trying to make a political statement in some way, or do better in some way. And then the next level was like coexistence. So bringing a bunch of businesses or struggling or emerging businesses together, a plant shop, a coffee shop, a vintage shop, again, slow fashion, better, regreening the city with the plants. Everything had a purpose. And then that next tier that we're trying to get to, it's taken about 9 months, but then we had co-host, which was bringing people together and hosting events such as this. We haven't got into political engagement conversations yet, but what we have got to is we're stepping it up bit by bit. There's been one called Open Connect, where people can connect on skill sharing or collaborating, or just general help. There was one on intimacy and one on how to have deep conversations with each other by eye gazing. We've had yoga and meditation. And so then we're getting into now an element called co-creation, which is bringing business ideas or movement ideas together, which is starting to happen more and more. And then the 2 last chapters that we're trying to achieve within this business and community is co-village, which is expanding these ripples of positivity out into the community. One project is a green collective trying to urbanize, more urban gardens around Lisbon. And then you've got co-impact, and that's off the back of that, we want to start an accelerator for social and environmental impact, causes and movements. And this is where I believe Conversations That Matter will play a very relevant role in the new year. We might lead into an online community radio and a few other things, such as me and a few others actually who have been a part of Crossroads and others that are at Casa are starting an agency, purely putting our commercial skills into scaling and marketing social and environmental impact businesses and causes. So again, that will bleed into these Conversations That Matter. So that's it from me. It's been a very exciting journey over the last 18 months, and to see a community that's starting to thrive and ripple beyond people who I don't even know in this physical space, as the same as what's happening with Joseph starting this. So it's all about those little ripples of change, and I can't wait to see this in 1 year from now, how big it will have grown to. So take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's worth pointing out that for Jackson, he actually woke up and was ready at 7:30 Lisbon time just for us. So another round of applause for you. Thank you, Jackson. Before we wind up with some entertainment, Joe is going to workshop the form that we are wanting you to consider filling in. Joe?
We have fallen down. We had 100 copies of the form to put on all the tables, except that we left them behind. So you have to make up for it. I think, yes, okay. So the form is available online on the Conversation at the Crossroads website. In any case, in the next day or two, everyone who registered for this event, and so many others, will get the form as an attachment too, if you prefer to work with that. So, what we're doing is we're asking you to answer a few questions. What kind of conversation group would you like to join? Can we scroll down? Okay, stop. So, the option is, exactly as I said it before, you can either say, I will try and get a group of people together, just leave it with me for a while, and we've heard from a number of people who don't have that. Or you can say, well, I'm not sure that I can get a group together, but here are the issues I'm interested in, match me with other people who share those interests and other issues for such a group. And then you can tell us whether you prefer to take part in a group online or face-to-face, or if you prefer to consider either or both, of course, depending on location. We won't read you and that's but we might in due course when you visit. Okay, so they're the options. Now, some issues that are on many people's minds and lips, and we list the whole number, and we can scroll down. Okay, further down. And we ask you to please tick your top 4. And if some of your top ones are not there, please specify all kinds of other issues that aren't listed there. And then we'll see what all of this shows us over the next several weeks, and we'll be able to take it, obviously, a step further. And then right at the bottom, there's got the objective thing. We want to know who it is that's submitting it, so just your details, and in due course, you will hear from us. So we're interested in being as supportive as we can. Now, I'm reasonably confident that if we have the forms, the printed form, of course, those who are speaking, who are joining us online, don't have the printed form, but they're able to go as we can either to the online version or to the attachment that we send to. So, had we had the form here, I suspect many would have expressed but we haven't got the form. We can't put it right here, so that is good. Say it again, please, Susan. Yes. Well, if you're inclined that way, by all means do it. But I have one request. If you have any interest, please getting back to us. No later than this week. No later still. So if you can, try and connect, and you will get an email from us to jog your memory and provide a bit more information. So please see what you can do to give conversations that matter also in your area of work, even if it's only with just yourself. So leave it with you, and please do the very best you can. You can do something more, and that is you can be an ambassador. You can bring it. Please do so. There's lots of information on the website if anyone's interested.
Great, thank you, Joe. Now, before I throw to the entertainment for the evening, which is after our earlier piece of entertainment, this will be like an oral reparation. That's the thing. It's live. It's amazing. The artist has an incredible set of vocals. So before we do go to that, I just wanted to actually share with you a incident of how conversations have shifted behaviour and created social change from a sort of a social wellbeing context. I do some work for the Department of Health on COVID engagement in diverse communities. And we noticed within certain communities there was a bit of hesitancy and resistance several months ago. And when conversations were actually had one-on-one with individuals, that would elicit a behaviour change. And GPs actually said this to me in conversation. They said, if I could just spend 45 minutes with every patient and address their misconceptions and just hear them out and answer them and make them feel valued and heard, and then respond with some insight, and they would come around. I don't have a 45-minute window to do that consult. So that idea was then picked up by an entity called Vax Chats. And Vax Chats was set up specifically to have conversations in language between Arabic, Turkish, Urdu, Somali, and Farsi, 5 languages. And the idea was that people could go online, book a conversation with a medical professional, and it was clearly billed as a conversation, not a consultation. They could have any of their questions asked and answered. And the result of that within days was families of up to 5 or 6 kids who weren't vaccinated because they were harbouring doubts, would call or visit online, book a consult with an Arabic-speaking GP or an Arabic-speaking pharmacist or even an Arabic-speaking med student, all who are volunteers, have those issues resolved, and they would all get vaccinated. And that was a classic shifting of the needle, and it shows and illustrates the power of conversation that matter. I mean, they absolutely mattered in this particular instance. So I think there's evidence in this science that Joe has put forward. Now, to some fun stuff. I would like to invite Minty D to entertain us with a musical conclusion to tonight. She's an eclectic, resourceful musician, singer and songwriter who's very excited to share her infectious joy and amazing vocals. I heard her in soundcheck for the launch of today's initiative. And she's also, I believe, perhaps even written or curated a piece just for us. So please welcome Minty D.
What a wonderful night it's been so far, hasn't it? Yeah, celebration, absolutely. All right. 1, 2. Oh, that's nice and loud. You can definitely hear me, can't you? So this song is curated especially for this particular conversation at Crossroads launch. I'm extremely happy to be and honoured to be here with all of you today. I'd actually also like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation before I start this performance. And with all of you here today, I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We're very grateful that we are on the land that was superseded by the white colonisation. So I'm very, very grateful to be here today. So this song is called The Good and the Bad. And we all know that during COVID time, it was difficult. You know, that a lot of people had ups, a lot of people had downs, a lot of people came up with really positive solutions, positive conversations, and some people needed encouragement to come to those conversations. So this song is exactly about that. And this song is actually in a cappella. A cappella with a little bit of electronic music. Sometimes we're down, sometimes we're up, but never, ever, ever should we give up. Sometimes we're down, and sometimes we're up, but never, ever, ever should we give up. Sometimes we're down, sometimes we're up. Yeah, but never, ever, ever should we give up. Sometimes we're down, and sometimes we're up. Yeah, but never, ever, ever should we give up. Are you fine? Yes, I'm fine. Though, are you fine? No, I'm not fine. So we must be there. Brothers and our sisters working together. Brothers and our sisters working for better. Brothers and our sisters working together. Brothers and our sisters working for better. Sometimes we're down, and sometimes we're up. Yeah, but never, ever, ever should we give up. 'Cause sometimes we're down, and sometimes we're up. Yeah, but never, ever, ever should we give up. Sometimes we're down, sometimes we're up. But we're the brothers and our sisters. We're never gonna give up. We're the brothers and our sisters. We're never gonna give Thank you. So yeah, that song was inspired by Conversations at a Crossroad. I felt truly inspired by all the topics that were being spoken about, and it just came straight out as any conversation should do when we really want to inspire and to engage with one another. This next tune, I've got two more tunes for you. This tune is actually using a live loop station. So if any of you know about live loopers, or if you don't know about live loopers, you'll learn all about it tonight. So I'm going to make a live beat with you here. This particular song was written about falling in line with regulation. It was right at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, and when we were all starting to redefine what it was to be wearing masks, to be social distancing. Some of us were losing our work. A lot of musicians that I know were losing their work. So this was something that came out of it. So yes, let's get my starting note. do some percussive sounds. That's the creation, and now the song. It's called Fall in Line. Fall in line, I fall in line to the break of day. I feel its grip on my neck. So fall in line, I fall in line to the break of day. I feel its grip on my neck. What will I do? 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 I don't know. I don't know. I don't What will I do when I see you there? What will I do when I can't go there? What will I do when I see you there? What will I do when I can't go there? No, 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 no. I will walk the line. I will fall in line. So I fall in line. I fall in line at the break of day. I feel its grip on my neck. Fall in line. Thank you. That is the second time I've done that in public, so thank you so much for being my second audience. I've got one more tune. This is actually a collaboration. She would be thrilled. This is a collaboration with a wonderful woman who served in the police force for 25 years as a sergeant. She always encountered a lot of sexism and, you know, come on, just be one of the blokes. And she's recently retired from being in the police force, and she's decided to take up lingerie modelling as a mature woman and a more curvaceous woman, and it's great because she's doing it because she wants to do it, and that's a wonderful thing. And she's leading by example and showing everybody out there that it doesn't matter what size you are, what you look like, where you anything. It's just what you have to express is beautiful, and that should be accepted. So she had some really bad backlash on social media. So she wrote a poem. She came to me and she asked me, Minty, can you please write a song? And she's a very kind of like abrupt kind of person. So we managed to knock out this song in 45 minutes. So yes, and it's all about the perception that people have of when a woman shows herself on social media, what does that look like to them? What is that person's perception? What is that that male's perception? What is, you know, how is that person coming across? And so she was quite distraught about being attacked by trolls online. And I just said to her, look, Beverly, you're doing this because you want to do this. This is something that you feel is empowering the women around you. And women recognize her when she goes to the cafe and they're like, oh, because of you, I decided to go out and buy some nice lingerie. I never thought I could look good in it. And you've shown me that I can. So this song is all about that. Perception you think you have of me is wrong. So let me tell you in this song. Perception, let me preach it. My Instagram to a keypad. Perception, don't wanna marry you. My Instagram, my sexy stuff for you. Keep your dreams with your fans. I don't need your Mercedes Benz. Keep your dreams with your fans. I don't need your Mercedes Benz. Do you have to be dirty, not nice? Do I need to be more concise? Perception is not real at all. I may be short, I may be tall. I may wear a little or a lot. Not a question of hot or not. I can wear a little or a lot. Not a question of hot or not. So will you be nice? Do I have to ask twice? Will you be nice? Do I have to ask twice? Kindness is all I'm after. Respect me and you hear my laughter. Kindness is all I'm after. Respect me and you hear my laughter. My Insta page, I love it 2 bits. It shows me laughing, it fits. Very pleasing, yes I am. Flirting and teasing, yes I can. Listen, you got it once and for all. If I bare my skin, not always sexual. I think brown eyes won't lie to you. Don't get it in your head that I want you in my bed. Don't get it in your head that I want you in my bed. Don't get it in your head that I want you in my bed. Bed, 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 hey, yeah, bed, 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 hey, yeah. For sex seems a harder way, but I keep telling you no and say, I keep telling you no and say. So will you be nice? Do I have to ask twice? Will you be nice? Do I have to ask twice? 'Cause kindness is all I'm after. Respect me and you hear my laughter. Kindness is all I'm after. Respect me and you hear my laughter. Kindness is all I'm after. Respect me and you hear my laughter. My laughter. My laughter. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I am so excited to see what's going to transpire. I know that Joe has put a lot of energy into this incredible conversation at the Crossroads, as has so many people. So can we give them another round of applause? I'll hand it over to these legends. Thank you, Minty. I don't know about you all, but that was my first live music session in 2 years. It was amazing. So good. Thank you. That was incredible. Look, that does bring us to the formal conclusion for tonight. There's been a lot. There's been conversation. There's been entertainment. There's been Zoom blockouts. There's been an online audience. Big shout out to the onliners for sticking through as long as you have. I wanted to thank Mitch Chambo. I want to thank Minty D. I want to thank all of our Conversation That Matters starters who've got the ball rolling. I want to thank Ben Friedland for his for all the amazing tech support that he's provided, enabling our first hybrid event to occur. A few hitches expected, but we got there in the end. And of course to Rita for the catering today. I'm not sure if she can take credit for the cake, but the cake looks amazing. And all the rest of the Conversations at the Crossroads and Conversation That Matters team that have enabled tonight to happen. It has been a collective effort. Seeing you all here as part of that broader family is really heartening. So it's very exciting to have you all here. We have cake, we have coffee, we have conversation. It's like a Melbourne trifecta there that, sorry the onliners can't enjoy it as much. But to inaugurate the cake, I'd like to call upon Rana Ibrahim, who's part of the coordinating committee for Conversations That Matter. Rana, to do the honours. I feel like there should be a drum roll or something. Okay. Please. And Joe, come along. Thank you, Rana. Thank you, everyone. As I said, this ends the formal proceedings, but please stay, please eat cake, please mingle and be merry. There's still food out there, and stay safe. Good night. Thank you.